Greatest heavyweight of all time is such a interesting conversation, and here's why. The heavyweight class, I will tell you, is the least athletic class. When you have a guy that stands out at heavyweight, I don't care if it's Mike Tyson or the Klitschko's, there's 10 of those guys at 155 pounds. There's 10 of those guys at 145 pounds at all times. But if you stand head and shoulders above the competition in the heavyweight class, for some reason, it's just more coveted. It always has been. The heavyweight title, the same one that Hulk Hogan had, the same one that Muhammad Ali had. There's something about the heavyweight class as it pertains to combat that will just set you above. And it seems as though, and maybe this conversation's coming up because Phaidor recently fought, and Phaidor is believed to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. The greatest heavyweight of all time is always a tricky one because you have to know what the rules, what the definition of the term greatest of all time is with the person you're having the conversation with. Here's one of the problems that runs into. Okay, if you're talking Phaidor and you're going to say he's the greatest of all time, and I see people do this all the time when they make the Michael Jordan and the LeBron argument, and they try to argue that Jordan is greater than LeBron, and they would know because they love basketball. If you love basketball, be careful saying that Jordan is better, because what you're essentially saying is that basketball peaked out in 1989. There's no sport, there's no job, there's no hop, there's no activity in life that beats the basic rule of biology, which is you either evolve or you become extinct. We must be able to recognize with sport that it is better in 2019 than it was in 1989, or we have to confess that our sport sucks. So this is the problem that you run into, because when you're talking about the best of all time, you're saying, okay, when do you think Phaidor was the best? And then you can decide. You have a whole bunch of years to choose from, but let me just throw one out. Let's say you say 2007. Okay, great. So 2007, that would mean that the skills that he had in 2007, you take those skills and then put it in the ring today. He was the champion in 2007. Would he be the champion today? That is how you would then establish the greatest of all time. Or are you saying he had the greatest career of all time? Because I can remember that debate coming up as well when people would talk about Jordan versus LeBron, and they talk about Jordan's got 6 rings and LeBron's only got 2 rings. But I remember hearing these things. Go, okay, time out. Are we comparing resumes, or are we comparing skills and saying the greatest of all time, the single greatest talent? And I think that always becomes a tough one. You would not be wrong to say Phaidor in the heavyweight class. You may have somebody that comes in and argues with you, but you would be on very good footing. I mean, the mere fact that at one point in his career, he had 31 wins and 1 loss. Oh, and by the way, that loss was a bit of a fluke, of which he quickly redeemed. He was essentially undefeated in the heavyweight class, wearing 4-ounce gloves. I mean, that's unheard of. Khabib right now, who's setting the world on fire, is 29-0. Phaidor was essentially 31-0. I got to say essentially. I say essentially when it fits my narrative. When people say John Jones is undefeated, I'm real quick to go, no, he's not. He lost one. Well, but he didn't really. Yes, he did. He did lose one. But now when it fits my narrative and I'm trying to put Phaidor over, I'm more than happy to talk about a cut of which resulted in a TKO and many people throw out. Great. Don't check my hypocrisy over here. Just enjoy the broadcast. But here's what I want to tell you. If you were breaking down the greatest heavyweights of all time, I do think that you would have to give some consideration to Randy Couture because of how he did it. Oh, and by the way, don't ever forget about the original heavyweight champion. The first heavyweight champion. Maybe the most successful heavyweight champion. Chael, who are you talking about? I'm talking about Royce Gracie. That's what I'm talking about. Chael. Royce Gracie weighed in at 178 pounds. I'm aware he weighed 178 pounds. It was an open class division, though. If open class doesn't mean heavyweight, I don't know how in the hell else to translate it. When he's in there with guys like Chemo and Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, who once they came up with divisions, all went into the heavyweight division, how can you tell me Royce Gracie wasn't a heavyweight? By the way, when you go fight 3 men in one night, when you go fight 4 men in one night, regardless of the outcome of which happened to be favorable to Royce, but even if it wasn't, if you get up and you walk to that ring 4 times in one night, don't tell me that guy's not a great heavyweight. Don't tell me he doesn't give. We're just talking paper here. We're talking who did what and when they did it. Royce did it all in the same damn night. So if you want to try to be impressed with a great heavyweight, you tell me one other heavyweight to beat 3 or 4 men in the same night. I just think that you could have a lot of fun with this conversation. I do think that Randy Couture, for those same reasons, would need to be considered in that talk. He was a very small heavyweight. Most Randy ever weighed in at was 228. And that was too big. Randy in his prime days at heavyweight was 222. And then he could drop right back down to light heavyweight. He could bounce right back up to heavyweight. He was a very small heavyweight, but he should get credit for that. Getting in there with guys that meet the limit and exceed the limit. By the way, it goes from 205 to 265. I mean, it's a big gap. That's a big gap big spread to cover. I think that should be considered in. But I will tell you, for me, the 3 great heavyweights of all time. If you ever want to give an all-time heavyweight list and you don't put Josh Barnett on it, you lose credibility with me. If you think that Josh Barnett is not one of the greatest top 3 heavy to ever do it, you will lose credibility with me. So I'm going to go Phaidor. I'm going to go Josh Barnett. Chael's list. Phaidor, Josh Barnett. Number 3 gets a little bit tricky because Cain Velasquez was the most respected and feared heavyweight to ever do mixed martial arts. So Cain's name has to come up. The question becomes, can you insert Daniel Cormier's name? He was the world heavyweight champion. He's getting ready to fight for the world heavyweight championship. He won the Strikeforce. I think that you can. It just seems as though most of us would include him down at light heavyweight. So then it becomes, okay, is Daniel eligible? Should Daniel be thrown in there? Well, what about Stipe Miocic? He set records, lost it all, and came back and got it again. What, you're just going to slide Stipe? And I also think that you need to give a major consideration to Fabricio Werdum, who, by the way, is just about to become eligible again. Werdum's going to be able to apply and be granted a license in May. Where are we at? We're January, essentially? I mean, this is right around the corner. I should include, this is one of the top fighters in the world. This is a guy that's got wins over the Phaidor Emelianenko's of the world, that's got to win over the Cain Velasquez of the world. I mean, this has been in the ring with the Stipe Miocic's of the world. I mean, this is a bad dude who, by the way, as you look at this weight class, I mean, what in the hell's going on at it? We got Stipe versus Daniel, but we don't know when. We've got John Jones flirting with the idea, but he got knocked away. You've got Phaidor in a different organization, Josh Barnett in a different organization. Now you've got Rosenstrike coming up, which begs the question, how's Ngannou fit into this whole thing? And where does Alistair Overeem go? I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts at heavyweight. I don't know if there's a better time or a more needed time for Werdum to be coming right back to the plate. I would not suggest for you that Werdum walks into a title shot. I don't think that you guys would suggest that back for me. I'm not talking crazy over here, but I do think with a little bit of a boost, a meaningful call-out, a meaningful first fight, a good main card performance and or victory, I think Werdum is right back in this discussion in a real hurry. Where does heavyweight stand right now? I think it stands on pretty good footing. I think it's going to stand on even better footing when Werdum comes back.